Hey guys, welcome to my channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei Reborn by Ddraig Part 2. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like and share, and also watch Part 1. Let's start the video. Chapter 3, Meeting the Devils. Issei opened his eyes and sat up on his bed. It was one of those rare occasions where he didn't get the nightmare and was allowed to sleep for once. He stood up from his bed and walked to the bathroom. He undid the bandages and applied a bit more povidone on his wounds. He opened his medicine cabinet and grabbed 3 new pairs of bandages. He rolled them to where his injuries were. Once he did that, he grabbed his shirt from his bedroom and headed downstairs into his kitchen. He wasn't hungry at all, so he decided to skip breakfast for today. He looked at a clock on the wall and noticed that it was 7:13. It was time for him to go to school. He went to the door and put his shoes on. He then grabbed his bag and put the spare key inside it. He slung the bag over his shoulder and exited his house. After walking for about a minute, he noticed that Rainer's body was still on the road. He looked to his left, then to his right, and finally behind him. He grabbed Rainer and slung her dead body over his shoulder with ease. Since he wasn't that far away from his house, it was a good idea to drop her there and maybe dispose of her body in the weekend. He opened his door with his key and threw Rainer inside. He closed the door and locked it. He then began walking towards the school. Of course, there was nothing he could do about the large crater, but at least no one would see a dead body lying in the middle of the road. Once he arrived at school, he looked at the giant clock that was on the school. From what he could tell, the time was 7:26. He still had 4 minutes till class, so he should hurry up a little. He entered the building, and right off the bat, he noticed that the 2 perverts from yesterday were running for their lives. They were being chased by 2 girls that were yukatas, and in their hands were kendo sticks. "Come back here, you perverts," one of the girls shouted. "You're not getting away from us that easily," the other one shouted. "Ah, please spare us. Hey new guy, protect us from the evil girls," Matsuda said as he and Motohama hid behind Issei. Once the girls noticed that they were hiding behind Issei, they stopped dead in their tracks. They looked at him and started to back off a little. Issei knew that they were scared of him, but he decided to give the 2 girls what they wanted. He grabbed Matsuda and Motohama by the collar of their shirt and dragged them forwards, as they screamed for him to stop. Issei dropped them right in front of the 2 girls and walked off towards the stairs. He heard one of them mutter a thank you. He then heard the perverted duo scream in pain as the sound of kendo sticks coming in contact with the 2 perverts echoed throughout the school. Before he could start walking up the stairs, he saw the same girl from yesterday, the one that was staring at him. She looked at him with her gold eyes. During lunch break, come to the old school building. The president of the Occult Research Club wants to speak with you, the girl said as she started to walk the other direction. Issei looked at the girl weirdly and shrugged his shoulders. He didn't want to go, but at the same time, something was a little off about her. "Well, obviously she's a devil partner," Ddraig's voice rang inside Issei's head. Issei hasn't seen a devil before, but by what Ddraig taught him over the past 10 years, he told him all about the fallen angels, the devils, the exorcists and the angels. But he decided to push the meeting into the back of his head as he entered the classroom, and just in time before the bell rang, he sat down on his usual sit as Ms. Keiko entered the classroom. "Alright, take out your mathematics book and your mathematics notebook, we are going to work on some slops," Ms. Keiko said. During lunch, once lunch arrived, Issei decided that he would first buy his usual lunch. When he finishes, he'll head out for the old school building, which he could easily see from outside. He went to the canteen and bought himself 2 pieces of white bread. He then went to his usual spot under the tree. He opened the first pack of white bread and took a bite. As he was eating, his mind began to travel to the small meeting that he was about to have with the orc. Of course, he didn't know what to expect. That white-haired girl that he saw earlier was supposed to be a devil, by Ddraig standards, so he could suspect that she's not the only devil inside the school. Maybe there are more in the old school building, or the orc. He finished his first white bread and then looked at the other. He decided to eat the last one on his way home, so he stuffed it in his pocket. He stood up and made his way to the old school building. Once arriving, he raised his guard, in case of a sneak attack. He doubted that they would attack him in school territory, but he still needed to be careful. He stood outside of the door and waited a bit. He then grabbed the handle and opened the door, closing it once he entered. He looked in front of him and saw the small white-haired girl, waiting for him and a set of stairs. "Follow me," she said as she walked up the stairs. Issei followed her up the stairs while looking at his surroundings. The building looked more of a mansion, despite how it looked outside. Once they reached the top of the stairs, they walked forward. They reached a pair of 2 doors. The white-haired girl opened one of the doors and went inside, Issei following. He closed the door. In the room was a big coffee table that had trays of sweets and tea. There was a big desk at the end of the room and behind it was a red-haired girl. "We're back, President Reyes," the white-haired girl said as she sat down on one of the sofas in the room. She then grabbed a chocolate biscuit from a small tray and started to eat it. "Good job, Koneko," a red-haired girl said that was behind the desk. She looked at Issei with a smile. "So you must be the transfer student that I heard so much about." "As you heard from Koneko, my name is Reyes Gremory. Since there are a few more of us, would you prefer to meet him first, or would you like me to start with the question now?" Reyes asked, the smile still on her face. Issei just shrugged, not caring either way. Since I have a little work to do, you can sit down and relax for the meantime, Rias said as she continued what she was doing. Issei walked to sit down on the sofa opposite of Koneko. He relaxed in his sit and looked up at the ceiling. He gave a small sigh and closed his one eye. He could sense it. The red-haired girl is a devil as well. And a pretty powerful one too. Remember my name. My name is Kokabiel. Kokabiel's voice rang inside Issei's head. Issei opened his eye, still staring at the ceiling. He began to hear their voices again. Issei, run as fast as you see. His mother's voice then ranged inside his head. Issei gritted his teeth. This was the aftermath of not having the nightmare, not that he wouldn't hear the voices if he did have the nightmare. But he still hated it. Still alive. For a human, you don't die as easily. But that doesn't matter. I'll end your life now. Kokabiel's voice rang once more. Issei gave a low growl, which thankfully no one heard. He tried to force the voices to go quiet for the meantime and he succeeded. Just then, he heard the door open. He looked towards the direction of the door and he saw two people walking in, a boy with short blonde hair and blue eyes and a girl with long black hair that was in a ponytail and violet eyes, which resembled Rainier a bit. Ah, you're all here. Good. Now we can start the meeting, Rias said, smiling. As she said that, all except Issei went near the big desk the Rias was. Let's start by introducing ourselves again. My name is Rias Gremory, Rias said with a small bow. Koneko Tuju, Koneko said in her normal monotone voice. My name is Yuto Kiba, pleasure to meet you, Kiba said, also with a bow. And my name is Akino Heinjima, Akino said with a smile. Now, from what I heard around the school, your name is Issei Hayadu, correct? Rias asked. Issei nodded. Now, from what Koneko told me yesterday, you fought and successfully killed a fallen angel. I want to thank you for that. But the real question is, are you a threat to us devils? Rias asked, as hers and the other members' black wings emerged from their backs. Issei looked at him for a small while. He looked down at his right arm and saw a green light. He extended his arm forward and the red gauntlet appeared on his arm. The boosted gear, Rias trailed off with shock. Rias Gremory Draig's voice was heard from the gauntlet. Red Dragon Emperor? Rias asked in shock as the other's eyes widened. Yes, it is me. As you probably already know by now, Hayadu Issei is my host. And to answer your previous question, if you do not get in our way during our small quest, then you will be recognized as an ally. But if you somewhat interfere, then we will have no choice but to attack. Ddraig said. Curious question. What exactly is your quest? Rias asked with a brow raised. Ddraig went silent for a moment. Partner, do you want me to say? Ddraig asked Issei. Issei gave a long sigh and surprisingly, nodded his head. Very well then. Our quest is to find a fallen angel by the name of Kokabiel. Ddraig said. Again, Rias and the rest's eyes widened at the revelation. Why you want to find one of the leaders of the fallen angels? For what exact purpose? Rias asked. Revenge. It was the only word that escaped from the gauntlet. Revenge. Why? What exactly happened? Rias asked. It is not my place to answer you that, Rias Gremory. Perhaps my partner might tell you, if he is able to speak that is. Ddraig said, causing the members of the orc to raise their brows. Wait, I just realized that Issei hasn't spoken yet. Does that have something to do with what you said? This time, Akino asked. The last time that I heard him talk, was about 10 years ago. Ddraig said. Rias, who was taking a sip of her tea, widened her eyes and started to cough. The others just stared wide eyes at Issei. 10 whole years without uttering a single word. Is that even possible? Rias, who has now stopped coughing, asked the gauntlet. When you shut out the entire world and focus your mind on one thing and one thing only, you too would be shocked by the changes you go through. Partner was a normal human, who had a good life, but that only lasted 7 years. Ddraig said. Everyone was silent. They didn't know how to respond. Suddenly, Rias stood up and walked to Issei. She grabbed one of his hands and put it close to her chest. Is there anything we can do to fix him? Rias asked, surprising everyone in the room, save for Issei. Rias Gremory and the rest, would you like to know what my partner's last words were before he went into silence? Ddraig asked, surprising everyone in the room again. They pulled a little closer to hear Ddraig speak. Yes, it's something that I would definitely want to know now, Rias said. She was surprised by herself. She didn't expect to feel that much concern for just one person. Very well then. And to answer your previous question, I think my partner is way far gone for him to be fixed. The reason is because of his final words before falling into silence. Ddraig said. Everyone was basically at the edge of their seats, waiting for Ddraig to speak. His last words to me were, once I find and kill Kokabiel, my life will no longer have any meaning. That's right Ddraig, once everything is finished, I'll end my own life and join my parents in the afterlife. Ddraig spoke Issei's last words to the orc. There were a few moments of silence in the room, when suddenly, EHHHHHHHHHHHH. Everyone screamed at once. Chapter 4. The meeting between a nun and a dragon. Issei was walking home after his meeting with the orc. After Ddraig's statement, Rhea said that she would like to prevent Issei from taking his own life, if possible. The others agreed to help as well. Issei gave a long sigh. He just didn't understand as to why she'd like to help someone like him. He was even surprised by her offer, turning him into a devil and joining her peerage. Issei thought about it, but in the end, shook his head, declining her offer. He still remembers her disappointed look. But she understood and let him go, but she also said that the offer would still stand. He took out his spare key and opened his door. He closed it and locked it. He let his school bag drop to the floor as he looked at the body in front of him. Since tomorrow was Saturday, he could go and bury her body near the end of the day. He went to his fridge and grabbed milk. He put it on his table and went to one of the cupboards, grabbing a bowl. He then grabbed some chocolate-flavored cereal. He poured the cereal in the bowl. The milk then followed. He grabbed a spoon from a drawer and went to sit on the sofa, opening the TV. As he sat down, his mind wandered to one of the agreements that Ddraig accepted. Rias accepted the fact that he didn't want to become a devil, but she then proposed in joining the occult research club. Issei was about to decline, but Ddraig beat him to it, accepting the offer. Partner, as much as I want to believe that you can kill kokabiel by yourself, I am having new doubts as well. Without help, then it would take months, maybe years for us to find kokabiel alone. But since they are devils and enemies of the fallen, then it could work as an advantage for us. They hunt down a fallen and they contact you. You try and get some information and then you kill them at the end. Sounds good to you, partner? Ddraig explained his reason to Issei. Issei thought about it for a while, but he agreed in the end. True, he is good at working alone, but him finding kokabiel alone might take a few years. But with help, it could lower the time of the search. After finishing his cereal, he looked at the clock on the wall. The time was 10:43. He put the bowl in the sink and filled it with water. He then went upstairs to take a bath. He took his clothes off with the bandages. Before entering, he looked at the wounds that were caused by rainair. They were all closed. Since he was now a dragon, his wounds healed 3 times faster than the original human time. He entered the bath and began washing himself. Hey, you can take all the medicine you want, but you will never get rid of me. I will always be in your self-conscious, I will always be here to torment you. Ha, I can see your struggle, nothing escapes from me, not even you. Issei clutched the side of his head as he exited the bath. He knew he forgot to take something these past 2 days. He forgot to take his medicine. After the incident with kokabiel, Issei's uncle took him to the doctor. After an examination, the doctor said that he was suffering from depression, extreme paranoia and maybe dementia. But the most worrying was schizophrenia. His uncle asked how the schizophrenia was triggered. The doctor said that it might have been during the incident. There is no known single cause of schizophrenia, said the doctor to Issei's uncle. The uncle then asked if there were any other illnesses or trauma that he could be aware of. One issue that the doctor said to be careful on was of a panic attack, since he did experience the death of his family. The doctor then gave Issei some pills. He said to take 3 every day, at breakfast, during lunch and at dinner. The good thing, Issei managed to get self-control over his panic attacks over the last few years, which caused them to be quite rare. His schizophrenia was the only serious problem, aside from his depression, extreme paranoia and maybe his dementia. Issei dried himself in a towel and quickly went downstairs. He grabbed a cup and filled it with water. Issei then opened one of the drawers and grabbed his bottle of thorazine. He put one down his throat and soon drank the water. Hey, you can't get rid of me, see you soon, Issei, ha. It was all that the voice said before going silent. Issei gave a small sigh of relief as the voice finally quieted down. For now at least. Issei went upstairs to his room and fell on his bed. He soon fell into a deep slumber. Inside Issei's dream, Issei's eyes snapped wide open. The first thing he noticed was that he was in the school's courtyard. He looked around, but there was nothing. Only the school and the blue skies with white clouds. Suddenly, the sky turned red and the clouds turned black. Issei then felt a sharp pain on his chest. He looked down and saw a sword that was impaled in his chest. Issei shakily turned and saw no one. So the brat from 10 years ago is still alive. I must say I'm impressed. A voice said. Shadows began to form a figure in front of Issei. First with the legs, then the arms, then the torso and then the wings. The man had long black hair, red eyes and from what Issei could count 10 black feathery wings on his back. Issei recognized him easily. It was kokabiel. It was what I expected from the holder of the boosted gear and the host of the Red Dragon Emperor. But I want to at least get a good fight out of you. Kokabiel shouted with a grin on his face. Before Issei could blink, he found himself on the floor, deep cuts all over his body. He saw kokabiel walking towards him with a grin on his face. Kokabiel had blood coming down his forehead and his lip was also bleeding. I must say that I'm somewhat disappointed in you. I expected you to at least put up a good fight. But it seems I expected a bit too much. Oh well, this time you won't be able to revive yourself, so that is another brat down the drain. Kokabiel said as he summoned a light spear in his hand. He raised his hand in the air and impaled it into Issei's head. End of dream. Issei gasped as he sat up on his bed. Sweat was trickling down his forehead as he let out short shaky breaths. Calm down, partner. It was just another nightmare. But this one seemed more realistic. But let's not think about that right now. Breathe, try to relax. Ddraig instructed Issei on what to do during his small panic attack. Issei gave a sigh of relief, feeling better now. But he agreed with Ddraig on one thing. That nightmare seemed realistic. It was almost as if it was trying to tell him something. But he decided that it was another nightmare, so it probably meant nothing. Issei stood up and went to the bathroom. He took a quick shower and went downstairs to make himself breakfast. He had enough to make himself a bowl of rice, so he probably should go to the store and buy more. Issei then filled a cup with water and took one thorazine pill. He put it in his mouth and drank the water. He gave a sigh and sat down on his couch, rubbing his eyes. Since there was no school today, Issei decided to spend the day home and then bury Rainer's body at night. But for now, he'll go buy some stuff that he needed. He took his key and exited his house. As he was walking, Issei still couldn't get his mind off that dream he saw. It was strange. He felt like he should be more cautious now. Issei managed to push his thoughts to the back of his head as he entered the store. After buying the stuff that he needed, he exited the store and walked back to his house. Stand still, I'll make you feel better. Trust me. Issei heard a voice say from right across the street. Issei looked at the direction of the voice and saw a girl kneel down with her hands extended towards a bow that was about 8 years old. The girl was wearing a white veil on her head and a black teal nun outfit. She had long blonde hair. Suddenly a green glow emitted from the girl's hands. After a few seconds, the boy stood up with a happy grin on his face. He looked down at the nun. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, Mrs. The boy said. He then ran off. The nun stared at the bow with a happy smile herself. Issei was surprised by her healing ability. He realized that it was a sacred gear and a pretty powerful one as well. If my guess is correct, partner, then her sacred gear is Twilight Healing. And just like your boosted gear, hers is pretty rare. Ddraig said. Issei crossed the road and approached the kneeled nun. The nun looked up and saw Issei staring at her. See, can I help you with something? The nun asked slowly, a stutter in her voice. Issei extended his hand to her. The nun smiled and gladly accepted his hand. Now that Issei was closer to her, he saw that she had green eyes. The nun looked at him with a smile. Thank you. Let me introduce myself, my name is Issei Argento. It's a pleasure to meet you. What's your name? Issei asked with a small bow. Issei gave a small bow as well. Issei cleared his throat, but ended up coughing heavily. It's been a while since he cleared his throat from the mucus that he had since the last 10 years that he spoke. Ah. Are you okay? Do you need help? Issei screamed in worry. Issei only raised his hand as he stopped to cough. He gave a sigh of relief as he recovered from his cough attack. Thank God, you're okay. Now can you please give me your name so that God can give you his love? Issei asked with a relieved smile. Issei pointed at his throat, or more importantly, his vocal cords. He pointed at him and shook his head. What does that mean? You can't speak? Issei asked. Issei shook his head. You haven't spoken in a while. Issei asked once more. This time, Issei nodded. So your voice is basically gone. How sad. Issei said in a sad tone. Issei nodded as if saying thanks for the concern. He then started to walk away from Issei. Ah, wait, Issei shouted. Issei turned to look at her with a raised brow. Since I'm new in town and I don't know my way, can you possibly show me the way towards the nearest church? There's someone I have to meet there. Issei asked shyly, with a small blush on her face. Issei had a small feeling that it was more than one person who she was going to meet, but he still decided to help her. He nodded his head and walked back to her, mentioning with his finger to follow him. Issei nodded and followed Issei. She looked up at him and stared at the two scars that were visible. The one on his neck and the one on his right eye. She wanted to ask him how he got them, but she knew he wouldn't answer her, since it's been a while since he last spoke. Suddenly, Issei heard a loud grumble. He turned towards Issei, who was holding her stomach with her hands, while her head was down in embarrassment, a huge blush on her cheeks. Issei could have sworn that he felt the side of his left lip inching up to a barely noticeable smile, which surprised him. He didn't even know that he had the ability to smile. But it lasted for only a millisecond, so he still has a way to go. He mentioned for Issei to follow him to a fast food court. Issei bought himself a cheeseburger. He bought another cheeseburger for Issei. They decided to sit outside. As Issei was eating his burger, he noticed Issei looking at her food. He tapped her shoulder so he could get her attention. Issei looked at Issei and Issei stared at her with a raised brow. This may sound like a stupid question, but how do you eat this? I've never actually seen this type of food, Asia said, looking to the left shyly. Issei then grabbed his cheeseburger and Asia looked at him. Issei then took a bite out of the burger and chewed slowly. He then looked at Asia. Is that how you eat it? Asia asked. Issei only nodded. Asia grabbed the burger with her hands and took a small bite. Her eyes widened as she looked at the burger with stars in her eyes. This is so delicious. I never ate something as delicious as this, Asia said as she took another bite of her burger. Just like before, Issei's lips went up to another barely noticeable smile. It lasted for only half a millisecond. After they ate their lunch, Issei then led her to the nearby church. Once outside, Asia turned to Issei with a smile on her face. Thank you for showing me the way to the church. I hope we meet again soon. May God be with you, Asia said as she entered the church. Issei was a little suspicious about what was in that church. He knew that there was more than one person that Asia was going to meet, but what were they? Were they fallen angels? It looks like you worry too much about little Asia. Why is that? You never cared for anyone but your own, why start caring now? Issei shook his head. There was no way that an innocent girl like her would associate with monsters like the fallen angels. Maybe she really was just going to meet another priest. But for whatever reason, he decided to agree with the voice. Issei decided to push his worries away and decided to go back home. There was nothing else to do. Hello Issei. Didn't expect to see you here. Issei heard a voice from behind him. Issei looked over his shoulder and saw Rias walking towards him. She wore the same attire that she wore yesterday. Issei raised his shopping bag, saying that he only came here to shop. I just came here to take a small walk for fresh air. Also, you could say that I was watching you a little. And I saw you walking with that nun, Rias said nervously as she saw the look that Issei gave her once she said that she was watching him. I just want you to know that nuns are associated with most angels, and since angels are enemies to us devils, then I would suggest that you stay away from her. Rias continued. Issei then extended his right arm forwards. Rias Gremory. Of course, we know that devils are enemies of angels and fallen angels are the same. But you forget, Issei is no devil. We may be associated with you, but that does not mean that we are at your side. Ddraig said. Then on which side are you? Rias asked. That is a stupid question. You should already know that we are on no one's side, expect our own. Of course, we appreciate the help that you will give us, but other than that, you are just a temporary ally. After Issei's quest is over, you know what will happen. Ddraig said. And I already said that I'll do what I can in order to prevent that. Rias said seriously. You can try, but I doubt anything will change my partner's choice at this point. Ddraig said. Issei then looked up at the sky. He saw that the sky was starting to get orange. He was quickly reminded that he should go bury Rainier in a few hours. Well, I think it's about time we depart. There is a fallen angel that we have to bury, Ddraig said. Issei started to walk away. Can I help you with that? Rias asked hopefully. Issei looked at her a little strangely. After a small while, he sighed and nodded his head, mentioning to follow him. Rias smiled and followed Issei. Issei was more than comfortable with the walking in silence. He actually preferred it. When they arrived at Issei's house, Issei took his key out and opened the door. The first thing that caught Rias' attention was of course the dead fallen angel that was near the entrance. The second thing that caught her attention and worried her a little was a bottle of medicine that was on the kitchen's dining table. Issei mentioned her to wait here, and he went upstairs, leaving Rias alone for the moment. Rias' curiosity got the better of her as she approached the dining table. She grabbed the medicine tab and looked at the label. From what she could tell, the medicine was named Thorazine. She then heard steps coming down the stairs. Rias quickly put the medicine to where she found it and went back to where she was before. When Issei came downstairs, he was holding a large bag and a shovel. Issei grabbed Rainier and stuffed her in the bag. He closed the bag and tossed it over his shoulder. Do you know where you want to bury her? Rias asked. There is a small yard behind Issei's house. It would be a good place to bury her, just as long as nobody sees, Ddraig said. I can easily cover you, Rias said, confident. Ddraig said nothing. They both went to the backyard through a door in the living room. Issei began to dig down a small hole. Once he was sure that it was deep enough, he grabbed the bag with Rainier inside and tossed her inside the hole. Issei, can I ask you a question? Rias asked, nervous. Issei stopped pouring dirt in the hole and looked at Rias. Rias was sweating a little. She didn't know how he would react when she tells him that she saw him medicine. She gave a nervous sigh to calm herself. What is Thorazine? I saw the medicine on your dining table, so I got curious. Rias asked. Once she looked at Issei, she instantly regretted asking him. He was just staring at her, a very dead look in his eyes. He finished pouring dirt in the hole. Once giving the pile 2 pats with the shovel, Issei turned his attention back at Rias, slowly approaching her. Thanks for watching. Part 2 is over. Hope you all enjoyed. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe.